Hello friends, I'm Kayla. Welcome back to the series where I'm trying to find a 5-star from every year I have been alive. I'm kicking it off in my closet, not to talk about books, but actually clothes, because I need to find something nostalgic for the thumbnail. I obviously already wore my 1990 shirt in the 1990 episode. My Reading Rainbow one had its moment. Frog and Toad had its moment. The MTV sweater felt a little nostalgic. And I just don't know that I have anything that I feel like represents this time in my life. I was 8 years old in grade 3. Ooh, when did Friday the 13th come out? Obviously, I don't mean the first couple, but like, was there anything that came out at this time? No. 1993, and then it jumped to 2002. NASA. Did NASA do anything cool in 1998? Okay, apparently NASA learned a lot of cool shit about Jupiter in 1998. Things about rings, things about one of its moons having water under its ice layer. Also, a probe found that our moon has enough water to support a human colony. NASA it is. This definitely doesn't suit the theme of the book that I'm going to be reading first, but maybe I have a science fiction that will come later in the video if this first one doesn't get a 5-star. If you're new to the series, I have this whole list that I need to fulfill of years of my life that I haven't found a 5-star, and the video doesn't end until I find it. We have almost completed the entire top row, and then there's only 3 more episodes to go. So the very first book that I wanted to pick up is called Summer Sisters by Judy Blume, because I was reading a lot of Judy Blume when I was this age, but not the one that came out in that year. I think this is for a little bit of an older audience. This story is about 2 friends, Victoria and Caitlin. Caitlin invites Victoria to her family's summer home in Martha's Vineyard. And I have to admit, up until maybe a decade ago, like, I went a lot of my life thinking that Martha's Vineyard was owned by Martha Stewart. When we were referring to Martha, that's who we were talking about. And I guess we spent a couple summers seeing what they're up to, seeing their toxic friendship, and then we're also following them as adults, and there's been a falling out of their friendship. But Caitlin invites Vix to come to her wedding, and then there's going to be like something that happens then. This was recently selected as a Read with Jenna book club pick, and so it's gotten a lot of attention recently as it's been republished, and I guess it's a big nostalgic read for a lot of women, especially the ones who grew up in the 70s. The first year that we're going to visit is 1977. So I'm not going to tell you any more of my TBR, just this is where we're starting with, and if it ends up being a 5, the video ends in 1 book, which would be wild. We've had quite a few in the series that have ended in 2 books. The last one, I think it took 5, but let's see what else we can learn about 1998 first. This was me, like, around that time. Oh, the Winter Olympics were happening in Japan. Bill Clinton was impeached. Japan also completed building, at its time, the largest suspension bridge in the world. Seinfeld had its final episode, and Google was founded. Oh my God, I wish I had a Google shirt. Oh, and a lot of people died in wars, shootings, earthquakes, floods, plane crashes, hurricanes, and some people who were born this year: Amanda Gorman, Jack Harlow, Paris Jackson, Elle Fanning, Mr. Beast, Central C, Maya Hawke, Jaden Smith, Chloe Bailey, Angus Cloud, Shawn Mendes, Amanda Stenberg, Juice WRLD, and Hunter Schafer. Now you're all caught up to, that's all you need to know about 1998. Naturally, reading a book set in the summer, I wanted to come to the beach and hang out and read here, so that's what I've been doing. And I've already gotten to chapter 20, and this book is both what I expected and not what I expected. There is a lot of other POVs than just these 2 girls. It's like their friends, their family, mostly their family. Let me spin around so I can see if anybody's coming to my secret beach spot. Thinking about the things that I was reading at this age in 1998, they were friendship stories, but they were all light, they were fun, they had tension between friends, but it was all resolved in the end. This one is more scandalous, is a word I want to use, and just like raw, and these girls are, I don't know if they are they good for each other to be friends? I can't tell at this point. I'm waiting for a moment to happen, a really bad moment in their friendship. And every time something happens, like something just happened, and I'm thinking, this is the moment. This is the thing that Caitlin like fucked up on, and now they're not going to talk again, or whatever is about to happen. But also there are so many pages left that I'm wondering, how can that be? Like, are we going to jump time? I don't really know what's happening. Most of the book is revolved around like boys and sex and when they're ready to have it and wanting to have it so bad and who has boobs and who doesn't, like typical conversations between girlfriends. But the book starts out when they're like 13 and at this point they're 17. So they've gone through some journeys and there's been some uncomfortable stuff like men giving them attention, and then we get from like their perspective and it's a little weird. Caitlin like almost gets involved with a dad that they are babysitting for, and there's a scene of him like kind of seemingly attracted to her and it was very uncomfortable, and Caitlin seemed like really into it and I was like, you're like 14. And Vix is trying to protect her friend, but Caitlin is encouraging Vix to do things. I don't know, but it hasn't gotten like that bad. I don't know how much I'm liking it. It's not like a wholesome story, but it's not like a really dark teenage exploration. Basically, I just don't have a whole lot of thoughts halfway through. But I've got to go pick up Liam from school now, take him to the orthodontist, and then he is going camping for his middle school graduation. So I've got to get all that ready, and I'll probably check in with you later tonight when I've finished it. Actually, I take it back. I'm not going to see you later. I'm going to update you while I'm reading. I don't know what I was thinking. In the off chance that this is a 5-star, I'm gonna need more footage of me talking about the book before the video ends. So I thought I would just tell you a little more of my thoughts as I read a few more chapters. And now I'm getting into part 3. Basically there are, I think 4 parts, maybe 5, where each one covers a chunk of time. This one's gonna be 1983 to 1987. And it's just in the summertime. Caitlin's family basically takes in Victoria and they call her their summer daughter, summer sister, like she's just there for the summer. But it also like gives her certain opportunities because they are more well off and they have certain connections. Victoria starts getting like more into what Caitlin is into and wants to start going to the same schools and wants to maybe have the same type of just career in the future. And so his family helps her and brings her in and connects her to all these things. But Victoria's family also starts to feel like resentful towards that, like she doesn't belong in this world and she's gonna come crawling back to them. And then while they're at school together, Caitlin doesn't really give Vix the time of day, like they're not as close at school. And this friendship is just not super clear cut, and I think that's the point. It's not the warm, wholesome friendship read, but it's not a dark, toxic one either. It's just dynamic because Caitlin has like a kind of messy family life. Her parental situation is messy and the people trying to parent her, and Vic over the summer, it's just like a little bit of tension, like how much can you control over these teenagers, how much say do you have in their lives. And so Caitlin is pushing back in a certain way and is kind of like dragging Vix along with her down what could be dark paths. I also don't know if I'm supposed to get the idea that Caitlin is in love with Victoria, because it kind of feels that way. Maybe she's trying to sabotage certain relationships that Vix might get into, but she's doing everything under the guise of like being a good friend and doing what Vix really needs and pushing her into like growing up. But also it started off with them having kind of like a sexual encounter that was very strange to read since they were so young. That's where I'm at, and I'll update you again soon. So Summer Sisters turned out to just be an okay read for me. I'm giving it a 3.5. I don't think there's anything super wrong with it. It had a lot of elements of just like what people were up to in 1998, you know, casual phobias of various kinds, referring to disabled people as burdens, uncomfortable, casual, sexual references between like children and adults, and making the main character 1/16 Cherokee to make her interesting. That's what she said. She was like, that's what makes me interesting. I think if you read this around the time it was published and you were around the age that these girls started out at, and then watching them grow into adults in this book and trying to understand their dynamics and see all of that, reading it as an adult and having a different perspective, a different take on how their relationship evolved would be so interesting. So I definitely recommend it for like that nostalgic read if that's something that would be applicable to you. For me, it was just okay, but I have like no thoughts towards it. I don't think that you really got to know these characters. They just existed for the story to be told around them. It wasn't, maybe because there were so many perspectives also, that we just weren't in the heads of these characters. We didn't get all their thoughts and feelings and relationship dynamic. It was like all just, we were witnessing it, kind of like watching, I don't know, like a soap opera. Before I move on to the next book, which is going to be Brown Girl in the Ring by Neil Hopkinson, because this is straight out of my TBR closet, and I have no idea what it's about. I feel like in the ring implies like a fighting ring, like a wrestling ring. So maybe she has to fight to the death. Oh, they're harvesting bodies. What does that have to do with a ring? I don't know, I'll find out. But before that, one of the most popular things that came out at this time is this. I've never read it, but I see it everywhere. I never picked it up when Liam was the age that he could have appreciated this. And I'm just interested to know what it is. So yeah, technically I am reading it for this video, but I'm not gonna rate it because I don't rate children's books. But I'll let you know what I think by the end. I mean, it's about a kid who's sick, but it also feels like it's a story of inclusiveness, maybe, is about accepting people who look different. I don't know, but I am eager to. Oh my God, cute. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans and she wanted to fit in. Camilla always worried about what other people thought of her. Okay, we're gonna accept ourselves and other people. So the takeaway was as expected. Don't conform, be yourself. But it wasn't because people should accept her for looking different. It was because she didn't like lima beans. And she turned all of these scary colors and patterns until she ate lima beans again and just accepted that she needed to do what made her happy and not what other people were into. This is terrifying. Like I thought, oh, the visuals are so pretty. This is horrifying. Like everything around her just explodes. She's becoming just one with everything around her. Like I don't know if I would have liked this. It frightened me. And no one ever came to accept her for anything. They didn't accept that she looked different. She wasn't allowed to go to school because she was a distraction. And then all the kids continued to make fun of her for eating lima beans. But the takeaway is that she can still be happy, which is a good message. But I don't know about that one. So I have been reading Brown Girl in the Ring for weeks, many weeks. I don't know why I'm struggling to get into it, but I am gonna wrap it up today because I need to like continue this vlog and figure out what I'm reading next and make some decisions. But this is like a speculative dystopian set in Toronto, which is cool because I feel like you don't see as many in Canada, at least the ones that like get a lot of attention and hype. And we're following a young mother. She's living with her baby and her grandmother, and she has some issues with her ex and his involvement in gangs and drugs. And there is like the wealthy portion of society who is harvesting the organs of the poor and doing terrible things. And so people need to like protect themselves, but also there's this whole magical spiritual part of it. It is partially like there's Caribbean folklore infused in here, and there are spirits, gods that can like take over people's bodies, including Baby, who's lovingly referred to the entire book as Baby. I don't know if the baby has a name. And at this point we're kind of on an adventure. I don't know why it feels like a zombie kind of book. Like it's just giving those vibes of having to, that's the thing that I can reference most closely. Traveling through the city and being weary of who you're interacting with, and there's criminal activity around and you're like surviving. And right now Tajine, I'm not sure how to pronounce the main character's name, but she is traveling through the city with someone else, and they have the ability to like go unnoticed or unremembered by the people that they're seeing. I think the story and the concept is fine. I do believe this might be the author's first novel. It is a little difficult for me to get into. It feels like the kind of story that has been in like an author's mind for a really long time, and so they know more about it than you, and they forget to let you in on certain parts of it, and so you're just like along for the ride and dropped into a lot. And yeah, I'm just having a hard time like connecting to it and really feeling invested and involved in the story. So I am committed to finishing it today, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Here's what happened since I saw you last. I put my swimsuit on because we're headed to the pool. I finished this, and unfortunately I have like zero thoughts on it. I have nothing to add that I don't think I said before, and I know I didn't say much before. I didn't take any notes. I didn't tab anything. I don't know what I want to say about it. I think it was like a fine story. It just wasn't that compelling for me. It needed, in my mind, like 100, 200 more pages. Maybe this could have been a series with how much is thrown into this. 260 pages is just not enough to cover this expansive world building, even though it is like our world, it's dystopian. There was too many things added into the story for it to be over this quickly. If you're gonna do this kind of fabulous type of story, I think can either be done really quickly and in a weird way where you just get a glimpse into the strangeness and it's so much up for your interpretation, or it's a very largely developed situation. But it wasn't either of those things. So it just didn't feel correct in the pacing. When you talk about the plot of this, it sounds like it's gonna be like action adventure, but it's not, it's also really slow. I don't think the main character is that compelling, but the relationship between her and her grandmother is. So there was just a lot of competing thoughts that I had. Next, let's talk about what I'm reading next, because I don't have any faith whatsoever in this being 5 stars, so I bought a different book, but I still want to read it because it was recommended a lot and I already owned it. I gave a 5 star to The Memory Police, which is the same author, Yoko Ogawa. This is Revenge, and it's short stories. I have no doubt I'm going to enjoy some of these, but unless every single story gets 5 stars, this can't get 5 stars. I think maybe there are 2 short story collections by a singular author that have ever accomplished that. So what I did was I listened to the first chapter of like 10 books that you all recommended in the comments because I wanted to make sure I was covering everything. I know that the Octavia Butler book that I love has a sequel. I just don't give sequels 5 stars very often, so I didn't want to commit to it. A couple of the other books were really long and intimidating, and I read the first chapter of this, which is actually not the first chapter, the first like section poem of this because it was recommended the most somehow when I've never heard of it before, so thank you for mentioning it. It's called Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. It's a novel in verse, and I would say if by the end like this sounds interesting to you, just read the first section, like read this and then read Appendix A. And I don't know, I have a feeling I'm really gonna like this, but I think that this initial like intro is either going to really turn people off or really appeal to people. I am the latter. It's basically all of these statements that are like, or no, maybe it was Appendix B, because I listened to the audiobook of the beginning. Okay, it's this part. Read this, because it's like either Stechikaros was blind or he wasn't. Either his blindness was temporary or it was permanent. Either this person had something to do with it or they didn't. Either the cause was this or it wasn't. And it's just like a weird way to intro it, and I really liked it. My family is standing right here trying to get in the vehicle. I'll update you when we get home. There's no point in updating you by the pool because I won't have read any short stories from here. But I do have a feeling I'm gonna end up reading both of these. Thank you. You know what I need to do? I need to figure out what movie I'm gonna watch. I don't know if I want to do a rewatch. I could pick, here, I'm opening the pool. I could do like Billboard Dad. That'd be so fun. I could do like Saving Private Ryan. I did a bad job. I'm gonna get yelled at. I want to say The Truman Show was that year. Parent Trap. I watched for the first time Practical Magic, like last year with the besties. Have you seen The Big Lebowski?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Let me see that whole list. I've probably seen that whole list.
Armageddon?
Lots.
Wild Things?
Yeah.
Rush Hour? Didn't you just watch that with Liam?
Yeah.
Mulan came out in 1988. There's something about Mary, Urban Legend, The Wedding Singer, Can't Hardly Wait, Night at the Roxbury, You've Got Mail, Ever After, Lost in Space. I know.
That's a really good list.
I've seen like all of these. Lost in Space, underrated. So I could rewatch something there, or I could watch for the first time Strike, Slums of Beverly Hills, or Hope Floats, which you probably haven't heard of any of those.
Nope.
And I haven't seen them, but there was somebody like on each of the posters that intrigued me.
Not even close.
Terrible, tell us.
Armageddon's always good.
Not the Parent Trap?
No, I don't like the Parent Trap.
That's crazy. If you want to see more of me and Rob, we are doing a members game night for the channel Besties where we play code names and we each have a team. If you want to come compete, that's happening on Sunday if you see this video before then. I just washed and blow dried and curled my hair before we decided to come to the pool. So I feel pretty like dedicated to not getting it wet.
Okay.
But I also have a 14-year-old in the pool, so I don't think I'm gonna succeed at this.
He's playing some pretty good basketball, high-level basketball over there.
Is that what you call it? That's what I said. Liam did indeed decide that we had to wrestle in the pool, so my good hair day was compromised. Oh, and I decided the rewatch I was gonna do was Billboard Dad. Has anyone ever talked about the fact that Troyan from Pretty Little Liars is in this movie?
Relax. Have fun.
It's like sometimes you think to yourself, do I want to read a piece of great literature or something stupid? That was me with movies today. I was like, I could watch something that's going to add to my life, or I could watch Mary-Kate and Ashley and reminisce about being 8 years old and obsessed with them. More great news. This is going better than I expected, not in ratings, but in enjoyment of the overall concept, because this is a series of 11 dark tales. I don't really think they're that dark. Maybe like 2 of them were. So far, I'm this far in, so I have 4 more to go of the 11. And what's fun about it is they're connected. Each story, like something is mentioned. The first one was like, there was just a kiwi, like it means nothing. There was just like a room of like a box of kiwis. And then in the next story, it was about something completely unrelated, totally different people. And then they came across this box of kiwis. And I was like, oh my God, are all of them gonna be connected? And then they were, which is just so fun. And it's not things that matter. Like the kiwis didn't mean something bigger. It wasn't a metaphor and it didn't impact the story. It's just something tying them together. So like in one of them, it ended and then the next one started and mentioned like the nephew of the man in the last story was like, oh, my uncle is a guy who did this. And I was like, that was the guy in the last story. And that actually makes me excited because the first story was really nothing. I gave it a 3 and it was just about this woman witnessing the grief of another woman. And I was like, okay, like I can appreciate that, but they didn't really interact. It was just like there was this sad woman that she was looking at in a bakery. And now I'm thinking the last story in here, it's going to tell us why that woman's crying. And now I can't go to bed until I finish this. With that said, all of the stories have been a 3 or a 2. I think I've given out 2 4s and only 1 5. It was called Sewing for the Heart. That one was super interesting. It was about a bag maker who was making a handbag for a very unique customer. And I thought that was good. A lot of the other ones are just, they're a little too short. They're a lot about encountering strangers. So it's like the first time people meet and the impact they have on each other, just witnessing somebody saying something or having a conversation with your neighbor, supporting a stranger going through something hard, but it's just like a couple pages. So they do often have a kind of melancholy tone, but I definitely wouldn't put this in any type of horror category or thriller category. They're more just general fiction, very short tales. And I'll tell you my final rating of the whole thing in the morning. I finished Revenge last night and I thought it was a perfectly good ending. I think like as an entire piece looking at it, it's like a 3.5 overall. Though most of like the independent stories were more like sometimes 2s and 3s. They're not the kind of thing that you're like, oh my God, this story in here was so incredible. It should be published on its own. Like it's impactful because of how they all kind of connect. I just dropped off Liam at hockey camp. So he's doing that for a week. Well, he's there for, I drop him off in the morning. I pick him up in the afternoon. And I made him listen to my 1998 playlist on the drive. He did not appreciate it. But let me tell you, there were so many things that came out. Believe by Cher was this year. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. And then the ones that I actually enjoyed myself. There's some Bewitched on here. Oh my God, Bewitched, so underrated. Like listening to their music now, I just appreciate how like fantasy, like fairy tale their whole branding was, and the lyrics are just so fun, but also the music is like kind of terrible at the same time. There's Spice Girls on this playlist. There's Tatiana Ali, who I'm sure I've talked about before, probably in my childhood favorites. I was obsessed with her. Like she, I think, was my first female celebrity crush. And listening to the songs now, they are bad. Also in 1998 was Izzo by Jay-Z, which is just like the wildest song. Also, Pretty Fly for a White Guy by The Offspring is on the playlist. There was some Usher, there's some NSYNC, things that I wasn't really listening to, George Michael. Oh, some original Destiny's Child, that's fun. There's some Britney Spears on here. It was a good, oh, and then A Cowboy by Kid Rock came out in 1998. And all of our lives were changed forever. Moving on to my next read. I'm gonna try to explain this, but I'm like not a mythology girl, so this might be terrible. There's the Greek myth of Heracles, and there was a poem written about Heracles and Geryon, who's like a three-headed monster or something. In here, he's like a person, but he's also like a red-winged beast, I guess. So Anne Carson has kind of taken that poem and turned it into this. Before they battle, it's giving Geryon like a backstory, like a childhood, like an origin thing that I guess maybe he doesn't get in like traditional mythology. So it's reminding me of reading, not like plot-wise, not even vibe-wise, not even writing-wise, I don't know, but it's reminding me of my experiences reading like Artemis and Piranesi and Galatea and the Song of Achilles. That was just my initial impressions. I really haven't read on since that initial, like there's just these little short things. Geryon's parents, Geryon's weekend, Geryon's father. And it's just the writing, like it's really doing something for me. So as soon as I finish doing this, I'm gonna pull out my highlighter and I'm just gonna go to town reading that. I have a feeling this could be my 5-star. And I still have a couple more days in the month, so if it's not, that's fine. And also I need to, I don't think I've done in this video, establish what I've already read from 1998, because I know there will be some like recommendations that roll in, because that happened last time too. I have already read Holes. I read it, I reread it as an adult, and it's a 4. I think it's a good book, but it was a 4. Then I read a book called China Dog that I think, if I'm remembering correctly, was a series of stories. And then Amy No. 7, which I reread in my childhood favorites. I wanted to be like an all-time favorite, but it didn't hold up. Still a good time, but not a 5. Then there's Harry Potter and Bag of Bones, which like maybe was a 5, but I don't really remember it. I thought about rereading it. Growing up reading Stephen King, like I wasn't rating them. I was a child, I was a teen, and it was kind of like either this is my favorite Stephen King or it's not my favorite Stephen King. So when I joined Goodreads in like 2014, I just added all the ones that I remember reading and I put them at a 5 if I remember them being a favorite, and I put them at a 4 if I don't remember that. And then there's a couple that I know that I hated, so I just wrote down as a 2. So I'm gonna get to, I think, the halfway point of this so I can tell you more about the plot. There's just something about this. There's something about this that is so good. It hurts. This book hurts. It's a coming of age story. It's about this boy and being different and the abuse that he suffers at the hands of his brother. And then he goes on to find love with a man in his adulthood. Maybe it's just I've never read these experiences in a book before. I'm talking really simple sensory memories that I've just never read. I've never read the description of the smell of pressing your face against a rusty screen door. And that's something that I can remember so vividly once it was written down, once I read it. The feeling of like lying down and crying so hard that your ears fill with tears. That's such a specific feeling, and I've never read it before. With his autobiography, he's talking about how there are like inside experiences and outside experiences. And it's him as a child far too young, recognizing that his body is not his own, and that everything in the world, like everyone can see what's happening on the outside, and the only thing that belongs to himself is his own thoughts. And he's also trying to hold on to these like childhood qualities, like he doesn't want his babysitter to read him a story that his mother has already read to him, because that could ruin that experience, and it could get tarnished, the memory, by having another voice take over for that story in that book. Oh my god, this is so good. And considering how the myth ends, like, is this book gonna end in tragedy? Or is it gonna end before that, with us as the reader knowing that the myth ends in tragedy? Yeah, that's a 5-star. Do I think, oh, my dehumidifier's on. Do I think everyone is gonna love this? Everyone will be satisfied by the ending, etc.? No. Do I think a lot of people will read the first like section and just think it's ridiculously written and kind of stupid? Oh, I don't know how to like find its audience. I don't know who to recommend it to based on what I've read before. It's also challenging to describe this beyond what I said before. You're following him through many years of his life, encountering Heracles, the impact they have on each other, and then encountering him again in the future. It's not like devastatingly sobbing sad. It just like feels really heavy. And the writing is stunning. I didn't highlight anything in that last chunk because I just wanted to be in it. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to read this again and highlight things because I just loved the writing of this. I would recommend the audiobook too. It sounded great at the beginning, and if you think that things written in verse are kind of annoying to read, like maybe you can't find the cadence for it in your head, the audiobook reads it perfectly. Thank you so much for this recommendation. My battery light is flashing, so I'm not just gonna keep blabbering on trying to find ways to describe this. Just know that I have officially completed the 90s. I have found a 5-star from every year of the 90s, and I only have a couple episodes left. And I'm so glad that I found something I love. Like, this could be in my top 10 of the year. I'm not committing to it. This was so good. Now I need to read more from this author. Oh my gosh, okay. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!